atheist can't go to hell. What do you think?
I would say that I don't believe that is true
Okay.
because I think fundamentally that scripture is true. I trust that. And I think that
Yeah, but I
if
don't.
that's, well, no, no, no. I'm not saying that it is true. I'm just saying that I believe that. So if in fact it is, then I don't think anybody, whether they claim to be atheist, Christian, Hindu, Buddhist, or anything, gets to decide. I just think that
Okay.
that is the truth.
Uh, sh- yeah, that's what you think, but I don't think that. Okay, so can a baby go to hell?
Um,
Just a wee little baby.
I think that's a good area for discussion. Personally, I would I would tend to be on the side of no
Okay,
there.
now I would say that a baby is an atheist because they can't even have beliefs because they don't know anything.
Yeah, they have no concept of reality
Right.
or
And a lot of apologists use this idea of the age of accountability too. Have you ever heard of that?
yeah, yeah, I have heard of that for
Okay,
sure.
cool. So I like if I were LARPing as a Christian, if I was going to pretend to, this happens. Like if you take debate in high school, you don't get to pick what side you're on the debate. So you may actually disagree with something, but you have to argue for whatever side you get. Now, if I were going to argue as a Christian, I would not. I would not. I would try to win the debate. So I wouldn't say things that are dumb to make Christians look bad. I wouldn't say that a baby can go to hell, right?
Yeah,
Because a
yeah,
baby can't know. I wouldn't necessarily argue that a baby is an atheist, but a baby doesn't know almost anything except by
yeah.
instinct. And so a baby can't believe in this, right? So we agree on that. What about somebody who, I don't know, or this is like a super weird example, but somebody who lived to be 80 years old, but when they were born, there was some like severe lack of oxygen right before they were born to the brain, and they basically kind of lived almost like in a coma like state their whole lives. I wouldn't say that person would go to hell either. What would you think?
I
Although
think
they,
that
oh, sorry.
I think that it comes down to fundamentally whether a person is capable of making a conscious choice to make what is described as a sin in Scripture. And if that's not the case, then I would say no, they can't.
Okay,
Because
I agree.
sin is a conscious decision.
Sure, I agree. Now,
Yeah.
what if you have no idea what is and what is not sinful, though, but you can act?
But you're fully capable and mentally stable and all that.
Yeah, but you have no idea
Um,
what is a sin or what is not because nothing's ever been revealed to you.
I don't know. I think that at that point you would have to be able to sufficiently. Okay, if this is a hypothetical and you don't know literally what sin is or is not, then I think you would be hard pressed to state factually that that person would be going to hell for committing an act that they don't know is sinful.
I agree. At least, well, I don't believe in heaven or hell, but if I were a Christian, well, when I was a Christian, this is the way I thought about it. So I totally agree. Okay, so we're getting to can an atheist go to hell, and I say no. And I'm actually wondering if you would agree with me, but I've never argued this before, and I want to hear a believer try to give me different ideas. So, do you think that Satan is a Christian? I promise this is relevant.
Um, I guess a short answer would be no.
Okay, so here's what's weird about that, though. Satan knows that God exists. Satan doesn't
Yes.
believe God exists. Satan knows God exists. And
Yeah.
if Christianity is true, then Satan knows that too, right? You can't know that God exists and Jesus is real and not believe it.
Yeah.
So, but what you could do, so in that sense, it's like, well, isn't Satan a Christian then? But now what you could do is you could reject it,
Yeah. You
right?
would have to.
But I don't really know what that means. If it's, I know it's true, but I reject it. That's just basically choosing hell, in essence.
Willingly. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so here's the deal. This pretty much comes full circle now. So, I don't believe, so therefore I can't reject Christ. Now, I'm aware of the claim that Jesus is, who Christians purport him to be, but I don't believe it. I can't know it and not believe it. And I don't believe it. So, I feel like the only thing left would be for, now if you say that atheists do go to hell, you'd have to say I'm lying. I feel that's the only thing I can think of that would be a response. You'd have to just say I'm lying. I do know it.
Well, I think what this would ultimately come to would be the age-old debate between creationists and evolutionists. It would come down to what is more.
Catholics are evolutionary theists.
Yeah, yeah, I do. No, I do understand that. I think it would come down to, which one is more logically sound, I guess. That's ultimately what it would come down to. Because if you are an atheist and you don't believe it, and you know, you can't reject it because you can't know
Yeah,
it.
I definitely don't. Yeah, I don't know it and I can't know it. I'm aware of the claims, but I can't know. I can't choose not to believe something, or how do I say that? I can't reject something that I don't know, right? And the fact that I don't believe it is because I don't know it. So to me, this is yet another exciting solution to Pascal's wager. I'm a fan of this, but I don't see how. I don't really see how you can say an atheist goes to hell if those exceptions we talked about earlier. I think a baby is an atheist, and I wouldn't argue that a baby goes to hell. I don't think somebody that's incapable of having like an empirical or really any kind of metacognitive or just cognitive experience in this world could go to hell either. And that's because they can't know it and they can't believe it, right? So basically kind of along the same lines. Now, another way you could argue this, and I hear some people do, like some presuppositionalists, actually a lot of them say this. They say things like, everybody knows God exists. And so then they have to be saying I'm a liar. I would love to go to debate that Saiten Burgess or whatever that idiot's name is, and ask him that, because he says that all the time. Everybody knows God exists. I'd ask him, I'm an atheist, so are you saying that I know it? Or sorry, are you calling me? Oh, so I would just ask him if he thinks I'm a liar, and where we go from there. But that's basically it. So I was just wondering,
Yeah,
what your
that
deconstruction of that would be, or your
I don't know
counter.
who that guy is really, but I mean, I've heard the name, but never really looked into him.
I don't think.
But
You
if
would
I
like him.
heard him say that, I would say that is a 100% intellectually dishonest statement, because
Yeah.
nobody, not even a Christian who is saved, knows that. There
So
is no
you're
way to
agnostic.
know that. No, no, no. I believe it.
Yeah,
I
that would
just
make you an agnostic theist.
well, if you say
If you claim you can't
okay,
know it,
okay,
that's agnosticism, because
I
gnostic means
I
to know.
I think it's the truth though.
Yeah, you believe it. Yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is that like that's fundamentally what being saved is is believing.
I mean, aren't you saved through the grace of God?
Yes, by believing that he rose from the dead, and by believing that he is the creator of all things, and you know, believing everything that Scripture says or
Sure,
claims.
but ultimately, I mean, I guess I just say that the saving. I mean, that's a verb. The saving is done by God. You are pre-qualified in your beliefs, I suppose, but this is I'm just picking nits at this point. But
Yeah, it's sort of semantics, but like, I mean, I don't think that there's like
I
an
got
act
I gotta give
that
this
he
guest a better view of my
performs
buffalo.
after somebody decides to believe, other than maybe the writing of their name in the book of life, maybe. But if that, if what Scripture says is true, then it was already written there beforehand. So, it was ultimately meant to be. But um, I digress sort of on that point. But
Yeah.
but basically, like, I think that what supposedly happened 2,000 years ago when he died on the cross was the final act. You know what I mean? Like, that was definitively what merited the gift of grace to everybody. That's what validated grace. You know what I mean? Being becoming a gift for those who now choose to believe because of what they have
So this
learned or heard or been given or
yeah,
taught or whatever.
this gets into a really weird place where it's like, okay, if the sacrifice forgave everybody, if I'm forgiven, then why do I need to believe I'm forgiven? Is there
Yeah,
anything
yeah.
like in science you want to talk about?
Um. Oh, I remember. I remember what we were talking about. Remember when I brought up the anisotropic synchrony convention
Oh,
and
it's
not
just
being able to
weird.
measure the speed of light
Oh, right. Yeah.
on a round trip
Yeah. I haven't looked into
or
that any
on
further
one
either.
way?
I mean, I know it's it's a truism in science. You can't
Yeah,
prove it because it's always possible. And like experimentally, you never could. Cuz like if we think about how the apparatus would go. So like if you're not initiated to what we're talking about, you literally can't measure the speed of light. Not really, because let's say I bounce a radio signal from the moon to here. It gets here in about it's like 2.4 seconds or something like that. Well, we don't know if the signal gets there in or if the signal gets there in how do I say this?
half the
We don't know
time
if
and
the
then half the
signal
time
travels
back.
there at twice the accepted speed of light and then comes back to us instantaneously, or if
Yeah,
it's equal both ways, or if it
yeah,
gets there instantaneously and then comes back to us at half the speed of the accepted value of the speed of light. We don't know that, and we can't know that. Because, like, you may think, well, the way I would test that is not do a two-way, just time how long does it take this signal to get from here to something maybe like 1,000 miles away. Well, the problem is if you went beep to time that, on the other, you'd have to time it from there to there, and you can't know that information because the other side is not getting the signal that you beeped the thing until the light gets there or the information gets
yeah,
there. And you couldn't do it from your position because it would have to go back and forth. So it's
yeah.
it's fundamentally it doesn't work. Now, if we had a
Radio
physicist in here,
signals travel
they could add
at
more
the
to
speed
this,
of
but
light.
that's the best I can do. Yeah.
Yeah, so which, since they travel at the speed of light, which is what we're trying to measure, then we're basically, it's almost like a catch-22. Like, we don't know the speed of light and we try to measure it by bouncing a radio signal that travels at the speed of light, which is what we don't know already.
Yeah.
And then people talk about, this is why it's called the anisotropic synchrony convention, because if you synchronize two clocks, just the very act of moving the clock to 186,000 miles away would desynchronize the clocks, because time, when you move it, Einstein's theory of relativity and all that stuff plays into that.
Yeah.
But
See, Carl here asked, couldn't you and the moon person wear synchronized watches? Yes, but you still have to communicate the information of what
yeah,
your watch says to them. And because you have to do that, there's the element of time, the information has to travel from you to the other person. And so we have no idea if it's happening instantaneously with other things taking longer or if it is steady. It's very, very hard to explain. It's much easier to visualize. I'm pretty sure Veritasium has a really good video about this. So watch that, because I'm not a physicist, and visual and audio put together is good. I know the visual here is very good,
yeah.
obviously, but it's not.
Yeah, no, I mean, so far from everything that I've researched about this, I think that this is an apologist's best argument to deal with the distant starlight problem. This is the only thing that I know of that I can present to a verified scientist, and they can say that's entirely possible, at the very least. So,
Oh yeah, because we
and
talked about that. Did you ever read that article from Answers in Genesis?
I'm not sure.
Because that
The
article
guy
talks
that
about exactly what you're talking about, and he has a response to it. And he's a physicist, but he's a young Earth creationist, and he thinks that there's significant problems with that interpretation. But I don't remember what they are. But you should definitely read that article, because it's from your perspective.
Yeah, maybe I'll have to check that out. The guy that I know of that talks about this a lot is, I think, also a physicist at the Institute for Creation Research. And I don't know if he came up with the term anisotropic synchrony convention, but I know that he speaks very in depth about it. And it's actually quite stimulating to think about, and wonder how that could be answered, or it never really can be. So, but I think that, like I said, I think that this is an apologist's best argument for that problem, because if there are things that we're observing that are 13.8 billion light years away, and the light took that long to get here, then obviously that would mean that the universe is this old. But if this is true, but there's no way to know, either way. So it's quite interesting. But yeah.
Yeah, that's talked about at length in that, and you don't even need this term you're talking about. You just believe God created a universe that's 43 billion or 47 or whatever billion light years in diameter, and just miraculously brought the light to Earth basically instantaneously. So, anyways, that's not really anything that I have much of an argument with. Although I would say I think it just assumes way too much. And the only reason to make this particular assumption is because of the conclusion you already have in mind. But anyways, what else do you want to talk about? Dinosaurs, fossils, evolution.
Fossils. We got into fossils before, and I was telling you that there's no way to know that a transitional fossil is a transition, because you can't prove genetic lineage. Remember that?
In the sense that they're well, yeah, in the sense that we don't get DNA from fossils, yes, but there's all kinds of other ways to prove that, and by prove we just mean gather evidence for. We never mean prove with absolute certainty in science, but we did that last time too. I mean, we could rehash the whole thing, but
nah, I mean, it's kind of a dead issue as far as we go. But I'm gonna get off here and let you bring some more people in. I gotta get to bed for work tomorrow, but it was good talking, man.
All right, sounds good to me. Later.